Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Like, comment and subscribe if you enjoy. Without any further interruptions, enjoy the What If. Chapter 14. Dear Mother, I just finished with my most amazing mission yet, the capture of the Dark Guild Eisenwald. Well, okay, to be fair, that wasn't our original mission. It wasn't even something we got paid for, honestly. You remember I wrote to you last time, about some of the strongest mages in Fairy Tail. Well, the most powerful woman in the guild, Erza Scarlet, asked me first at first, but then Fire Shadow did something and she was a lot nicer about it to come with her and two others to investigate something. The two others were Gray, who I didn't know that well, and Natsu, who even you know well, now. The mission had a lot of places where we were trapped and it looked like we were going to fail completely, but one of us always managed to find a way out and succeed, even me. Of course Natsu had to take off ahead of the rest of us near the end, and we were all afraid he would lose, but he managed to pull off a win against the ringleader of an operation to kill off a bunch of guild leaders. Wouldn't that have been horrible? Anyway, when Natsu beat the leader, we thought we had won. Unfortunately, one of the members who had helped us previously that we had as a hostage decided to break free and make a run for it with the flute lullaby. The flute was what the Dark Guild was really after. Supposedly anyone who hears the melody of the flute would be killed instantly. Luckily no one tried to use it against us, they were concentrating too much on the master's meeting. When we finally caught up to him, he was getting ready to play the flute to our guild master, Makarov. We were also afraid, and tried to go stop it, but for some reason the other guild leaders held us back and we didn't know why. We found out later that Master knew all along about what the flute was, and decided to talk to the Dark Guild member to keep him from using it. The amazing thing was that he pulled it off. It was truly incredible. But that's not the end. He dropped the flute, and it turned into this huge demon. I was so scared, I had never faced anything like that before. But Erza, Gray, and Natsu all teamed up and beat it really fast. It was awesome to watch. That's not all either. When they had finished it off, it looked like it was going to fall down and crash into the large meeting hall that the masters were using. But Fire Shadow appeared out of nowhere, really, and used some kind of glowing blue magic orb to send the demon flying. I didn't know what to think. Apparently he really does live up to his reputation. I know I'm going to remember it forever. In the aftermath, I heard them saying that nearly all the members of the Dark Guild Eisenwald had been rounded up and arrested by the council. Unfortunately, they didn't capture the ringleader of the operation, Eligor. It makes me wonder if we'll see him again someday. Other than that, everything else at Fairy Tail is great, and I'm having a good time. Don't worry about me, Mom, I've got plenty of friends and people to look after me now. I'm not alone anymore. Love, Lucy. P.S. Don't tell Dad. After finishing the letter, the blonde-haired girl let out a deep breath, set down her pen, and read over the letter one time. Believing it to be good enough, she nodded to herself, then folded it up carefully and placed it in an envelope, perhaps to be mailed later. Leaving it on her desk, she suddenly felt stiff, so she leaned back in her chair and stretched. Ah, wow, I still can't believe that happened. What an adventure. Leaning forward again and chuckling, this time she stretched her legs out from where they were under her desk. Still, nothing beats being able to relax in your own home after an experience like that. I agree. You've got a nice place here, Lucy. Letting out a startled shriek, the teenager immediately whirled around in her chair, only to see Gray sitting in another one of her comfy chairs nearby. Seeing her attention focused on him, he decided to give her a cheeky little wave. What are you doing in here? You perverted trespasser. Gray looked surprised, but also a little insulted. I might be trespassing a little, but we're friends, right? What's up with calling me a pervert though? That's just mean. Squeaking with indignant rage, Lucy rose to her feet and pointed at him accusingly. Clothes. Don't take your clothes off in my house. Ah, I'm afraid there's a little misunderstanding. I took my clothes off before I entered your home. Letting out a roar, Lucy leapt forward at incredible speed, surprising Gray, if the look of shock on his face was anything to go by. The girl landed on one foot and managed to pivot herself in such a way that she delivered a clean roundhouse to Gray's chest as he was seated, knocking both him and the chair toppling over backwards. TCH, ow ow ow. Gray winced as he held the back of his head with one hand and his chest with the other, rubbing them softly as he started to climb to his feet. Get out of my house. Just rubbing his chest now, Gray closed his eyes and sighed. Hey, take it easy. I just came to get you in case you wanted to see the spar. Lucy's rage subsided for a moment, if only because she was confused. Spar. The other teen rolled his eyes as he let his arms fall back to his sides. Yeah, remember how Natsu kept saying that he wanted to challenge Erza again after all this time, because he was training for a while under Fire Shadow. They scheduled the spar for this morning. What, really? How long until it starts? Yeah, they'll be starting any minute. I'm leaving to go there now. Hey, hold on, I'm coming too. Are they really serious about this? Having lost sight of Gray once they reached the gathering crowd, Lucy started pushing her way through to see what was going on. Finally seeing some people she recognized from the guild, she knew she must be getting close, and started shouting to draw attention to herself. Catching what looked like a glimpse of Gray in the crowd, the girl cupped her hands around her mouth to amplify her voice in his direction. Hold on, are they really serious about this? Why would they want to spar in front of all these folks? Several people turned to look at her, including a few from the guild. One of which was Elfman, who stared at her with a frown. Of course they're serious. If they weren't, then they wouldn't be real men. Before Lucy could retort about how ludicrous that sounded, she saw Mirajan pat her brother on his arm. Now, Erza is a girl. I don't think Naruto-kun would appreciate it if she was a man. Elfman blushed and scratched idly at his cheek, but chose not to comment further. Taking that as his accepting the fact, Mirajan gave him a small smile, then turned to the new arrival. Welcome, Lucy. Yes, they are both serious, though I think that Erza just wants to see how Natsu's training has improved his skills. That's all. I like Natsu, but I still don't think he can win. Mirane. Turning away from Lucy, Mirajan looked at her sister with a small frown. I don't mean that in a bad way, Lizana. But you know as well as I do, if Erza were to truly get serious, very few people could stand up to her. If Lizana replied, Lucy didn't hear it. Moving closer to the sibling trio, she asked another question, is it safe for us to be this close? Won't it be pretty bad if two of the strongest people in Fairy Tail fight? Strongest. Elfman seemed to hone in on that particular word, completely ignoring the part about safety. I can agree that Erza is strong, but there are plenty of mages in the guild who are still stronger than Natsu, no matter how much he likes to boast about his strength. Almost as an afterthought, he tossed in a quieter, sorry, Lizana. While the youngest of the siblings simply shook her head and continued facing towards where Natsu and Erza were talking with the guild master, Mirajan was looking up at her brother. Who is stronger than Natsu, Elfman? The tall man with spiky silver hair shrugged his shoulders in a languid motion. I would say I am, but every time we get into a fight Gray interrupts it. Other than that, Laxus, Mistogen, and of course Fire Shadow. You are too, Nei-chan, though we never really see you fight anymore. What, why not? Aren't you an S-class mage? Looking from her brother to Lucy, Mirajan gave a timid smile. I am, but I've been having more fun hanging around in the guild lately rather than going on missions. Besides, Master has been so busy with external affairs, I offered to help him look after the guild. I still help out whenever Master is around though, so I don't get too rusty. Before Lucy could say anything in reply, someone brushed against her arm, causing her to turn and look. Another girl from the guild, Levi, had moved up next to her. Hey guys, I'm helping Kana with the bets. Do any of you want to place one? Lizana's head turned so she looked over her shoulder at the new arrival. What are the odds? They're changing a lot, but the latest I heard was that they were 4-1 in Erza's favor. Lizana scoffed and promptly faced forward once again, causing the light blue-haired girl to frown and mumble, well, it's not like I'm the one coming up with the odds or anything. Mirajan simply shrugged and offered a sympathetic glance as Lucy gave the other girl a small pat on the shoulder. Levi turned her head and gave Lucy a resigned smile, then excused herself to go collect potential bets elsewhere. The moment Levi moved off, there was a brief flash of light, causing everyone's attention to focus on the center of the gathered circle. Lucy wasn't sure what was going on until she noticed Erza. At the same time, someone shouted out that she was now wearing her special Flame Emperor armor. Apparently it was extremely resistant to flames of all kind, and the clamor among the crowd started growing rapidly, many claiming that she was taking this too seriously for a simple spar. Natsu, on the other hand, had a positively maniacal grin on his face, as if he was going to enjoy this greatly. People around Lucy started jostling each other about, trying to change their bets before the spar started. Unfortunately for most of them, she heard Makarov say to go, and then both of the mages became a blur. There was a brief explosion as Natsu let loose with one of his techniques, though they were moving too fast for Lucy to see it clearly. She certainly felt the aftereffects, though, as a large burst of hot wind suddenly slammed into her, almost knocking her backwards on her rear. She probably would have too, if Gray hadn't suddenly appeared behind her, keeping her from hitting the ground. Thanks. Don't mention it. As soon as she was standing under her own power, Gray immediately moved around her, his eyes focusing on the fight between Natsu and Erza. Lucy tried to follow it once again, but it was becoming even harder and harder for her to watch them than when they first started. She wasn't used to seeing people move this fast. Heck, she didn't know they could. Lucy couldn't help but wince as she saw one of Erza's booted feet catch Natsu across the face. It was so clear it was almost as if it happened in slow motion. Not to be outdone, Natsu rolled with the kick, moving his entire body in a full rotational circle so that he faced Erza again. However, as he was turning around, he prepared a fireball in his mouth and promptly launched it at her as soon as she was in his sights again. Erza wasted no time in dodging it, and Lucy watched as it came close to scorching a few people in the crowd. As they started moving in on another collision course, however, there was a loud clapping noise, which strangely caused both of them to freeze in mid-swing. What's going on? Shish. Mirajan shushed her, the older woman's attention focused at a point on the far side of the circle from where they were. A speculative silence fell over the rest of the assembled crowd as well, and Natsu and Erza both fell into passive stances. For the moment, nobody moved. I am a messenger from the council in Erza. Lucy was surprised to hear this, and examined the curious messenger. It was very frog-like in appearance, and definitely sounded male. While shorter than most humans in the crowd, it was definitely humanoid, though it had a frog's head and webbed hands. The council. None of the sibling trio looked ready to answer her, as they were all staring intently at the new arrival as he moved closer to where Erza, Natsu, and now Makarov were standing. The Mage Council in Erza. They are the ones who are pretty much the law for anyone who uses magic, and they control the structure of the guilds. Well, for Fury at least. Levi had appeared next to her at some point. The soft voice of the girl still managed to startle her slightly. As she was about to open her mouth to ask more about the council, the frog-like humanoid began speaking again, holding an open scroll between its hands. With charges of damaging property and 10 other crimes from the Eisenwald terrorism incident the other day, Erza Scarlet has now been placed under arrest. Let me out of here. Lucy watched as a transformed Natsu pounded on the inside of the class case he was set in. The mood of the entire guild was sour. No one was really saying anything, other than Natsu, anyway. You guys have got to let me out of here. I want my original form back. Natsu, be quiet. Mirajan lightly tapped on the glass container, causing Natsu to frown. It wasn't much of one, as he was transformed into a miniature reptile with lots of teeth and thin lips, though his mood was made clear enough by the growl deep in his throat. Let me out. You'll act too recklessly if we let you out of there. No, I won't, I swear. I just want my original body back. This is humiliating. Mirajan leaned down close to the glass container from her position behind the bar. I know you too well. As soon as we let you out, you'll bolt and head towards where they were taking Erza. No, I won't. Who cares about Erza? Besides, if anyone does anything, it should be Fire Shadow. At that comment, several heads in the guild turned to look at the silent figure, mask on, standing up but leaning back against the wall near the exit, arms crossed over his chest. Other than exchanging a few brief words with Makarov since he arrived moments ago, he hadn't said a word to anyone, which included answering any questions thrown his way. Lucy heard a sigh nearby, and when she turned to look, she saw Gray lean forward with his elbows on the table where he was sitting. This is the council we're talking about, guys. I doubt even Fire Shadow could do anything even if he wanted to. There were a few murmurs of agreement from throughout the hall, though Natsu didn't let it keep him down. So what? At least he should go say something. If the council will listen to anyone in Fairy Tail, it would probably be him. Fire Shadow didn't reply and still hadn't moved, but others had started talking amongst themselves again, mostly wondering what was different this time, compared to all the times members had previously caused a lot of damage. Something didn't sit well with Lucy. There was something fishy going on, and for once it had nothing to do with Happy. Hello, Erza. It's been a few months since I saw you last. The redhead stopped short, her froggy-looking escort stopping just a few steps after her, then turning his oddly shaped head to look at her curiously. Looking around, she noticed as a form started to materialize near one of the columns in the hallway they had been walking down. After a moment, the form completed, and both Erza's and her escort's eyes went wide. You, Seagrain, what do you want? As the flickering figure approached, Erza quickly noted that her escort had gone down to one knee in a low bow. She didn't know that the council members asked for that level of respect among their employees. Seagrain didn't reply immediately, instead walking closer to her. She began to crouch slightly, preparing herself just in case. Even though her hands were bound, she would still be able to. Relax, Erza. This form is only an image, as I'm sure you're aware. I can't harm you any more than you can me, nor can I interact with anything physically. My real body is still in Erza. The same goes for all the other old fools behind the doors to the trial room. This whole thing is a facade, and they know it. There is no reason for anyone to come here with their real bodies. So, you were the one that caused this after all. Why am I not surprised? Seagrain chuckled lightly, shaking his head. My, so quick to blame me. I'm the one who usually backs Fairy Tail's actions during the council meetings, I'll have you know. Erza simply sneered at him, causing the corner of his lips to quirk upwards. Anyway, to appease both the council and the public, this was deemed the best and safest course of action. You get to be the scapegoat. But I'm fairly certain you are smart enough to have figured this out all on your own. Whatever. If that's all, go away. I'd like to get this over with. Grinning, Seagrain moved closer, making the redhead tense up. Just as a reminder, all those old fogies are behind the door as well with their imaginary forms, and I will be joining them shortly. There was a reason I decided to chat with you before you went in there, though. Seagrain moved even closer, his image flickering again at the sudden movement. His hand moved up, as if cupping Erza's chin. Even though she couldn't feel anything, the action itself sent a disgusting chill down her spine. Leaning his head close to her shoulder, his image whispered to her, "Never tell the others in that room about what happened back then, okay? It would probably be bad for both of us." Leaning back, he smirked at the blank look on her face. Pausing for a moment, he adopted a thoughtful look as he tapped a finger against his chin. "But then, perhaps I should talk to Fire Shadow about that as well. I mean, I'm sure having been partners all these years you two trust each other implicitly, and have told each other all kinds of secrets." The blue-haired council member watched as Erza's eyes widened for a brief moment before she quickly turned her head away, her face hidden behind her long hair. "You mean, you haven't told him yet?" "Oh." Seagrain let out a chuckle that continued picking up in pace until he was laughing so hard that he had to lean forward and hold his stomach. The entire time Erza never looked at him again. Finally regaining his composure, Seagrain made a show of wiping tears from his eyes, then gave a small wave, even though Erza still refused to look at him. "I'll be waiting for you behind the door as a part of the council. Thank you for still not telling anyone, it helps me out more than you know." That said, his image promptly dissipated. Erza was standing there, still silent. Her froggy escort slowly rose to its feet, slightly shaky, and gave her an odd glance. "You know someone as important as him personally." Erza finally straightened up again, giving the large door ahead of them a dead stare. "Unfortunately, he's the most evil person I know. Damn it, I can't just let this go on. I'm going to go and testify in her defense. We all should. Have a little patience, Lucy." But, Master." Lucy sighed, sitting back down on her stool. She just knew something was going on, and was fairly certain that others knew it as well. However, No one was saying anything, not even the guild master. Erza doesn't deserve to be singled out like this. She wasn't the only one that caused the problems that happened, and even though they did happen, we managed to stop. That's fine, Lucy, I know. But at this point, even if we tried to do anything, we'd likely be too late to change the outcome anyway. But, let me out, damn it. Let me uutt. Lucy tossed Natsu a heated glare from where she was nearby. He was being obnoxious again, and totally talked over any points she was making. Are you really sure you want to be released from that cage? Stopping all other thoughts, Lucy looked back and forth between Makarov and Natsu, totally expecting the latter to begin ranting again. She was completely surprised, however, when instead of ranting yet again, Natsu gained a pensive look on his currently reptilian face, and actually appeared to think about it. Judging by the total silence in the rest of the guild hall, everyone else was surprised at this as well. What's wrong, Natsu? Did Happy hide your tongue? Instantly, nearly everyone in the guild looked towards Lizanna, who currently had a sleeping Happy cradled in her arms. She blinked owlishly at the sudden attention, but before she could say anything, there was a small blast of magic and explosion back towards the bar. Startled, everyone turned to see what happened, only to see Mikao sitting on top of the counter where Natsu used to be, the glass cage sitting on its side nearby. Various exclamations were thrown about, most about Natsu's location and what Mikao was doing on the counter, but he gestured for everyone to settle down. Sorry about that, everyone. I took Natsu's place, because I owed him a favor. I just transformed into a lizard so I could pretend to be him. Lucy was shocked, as was everyone else, judging by the new questions being tossed around. But then where is the real Natsu? Has he been chasing after Erza all this time? Oh no, what's going to happen when Natsu encounters the council? Knowing him, he'll challenge them all or try to beat them up. Settle down, everyone. Upon hearing their master's voice, all activity settled immediately, many mages slowly sitting back down. I know you're all curious as to what's going to happen, but the best thing I can suggest is that you just sit and wait for the outcome. Actually, it's already over, old man. All eyes in the room focused on Fire Shadow, who slowly moved away from the wall to stand up straight. Really? How did it go? Fire Shadow chuckled lightly from behind his mask. About how you figured it would. Things were going smoothly, then Natsu showed up, threatened some of the members, and as a result they threw him and Erza in jail for the night. What? Just one night? But that. Lucy blushed a deep red as her sudden outburst brought the attention of the room directly to her. Sorry. Makarov chuckled. It's quite all right. I knew from the beginning that this was only being done so that the council could save face with the public, and to show that Fairy Tail still adheres to the rules set down by them. Even if those rules are crap. The guild master shrugged as he finished talking, drawing chuckles from various places in the room. They all stopped when Makarov focused on Fire Shadow again. Are you going to wait there for the night, then, and bring them back in the morning? Fire Shadow nodded. Yes, unless you need something. Nope. See you tomorrow. Fire Shadow tossed a two-finger salute at the guild master, then promptly dissipated in a puff of smoke. Lucy leaned over towards Kana, who was sitting next to her, and whispered to the other girl, was that one of his clones? I've never seen one for real before. Kana nodded, looking at the spot where Naruto was last. Yep, his clones are solid, can interact with objects and take a few punches before they disappear forcefully, unless they dispel on their own. They also act as an instant form of communication. If one of them learns something and then dispels, he learns everything that clone knew, and so do all of his other still existing clones. Lucy gave a low whistle. That's amazing. Kana had an eyebrow raised as she turned to look at the newest member. That's not all he can do either. It's no wonder he's known as the strongest mage in Fairy Tail. That evening in Era, are you content sitting here, while your compatriots languish in that jail cell? Naruto opened his eyes behind his mask, turning his head to look towards the direction of the hollow voice. He had felt the faint magical presence of Seagrain's image approach, and the more imposing one of the real Ultir behind him. He silently hoped that neither of them would say anything to him, but deep down he knew that was highly unlikely. Seagrain's question had put any hope to the contrary out of reach. Naruto's current situation had him leaning casually against the wall in a hallway outside of the cell block. Originally planning to get some brief rest from his current position as he waited for dawn to arrive, he knew now that he'd likely be having nightmares after talking to these two. Actually, Altair wasn't too bad when she wasn't around Seagrain. Considering their last discussion, it was likely she only acted like his simpering little secretary to please him, nothing more. He couldn't assume more than that, however, as he barely knew the woman. He cleared his throat before speaking up. The council handed down a verdict, didn't they? Fairy Tail knows how to follow the rules when it really matters. Seagrain's image stopped in front of Naruto, a small smile on his face, only growing larger upon hearing Naruto's words. Altair stopped not far behind him, though to Naruto it seemed as if she had her attention focused elsewhere. So Fairy Tail only follows the rules when it's convenient for them, then. That hardly seems fair to the other guilds. Naruto sighed. It was so obvious that he was being baited. Seagrain, both you and I know that I personally have never broken any law that the council has set forth. So if you're trying to get me to finally break one, it's not going to work. Sorry. The image let out a hearty chuckle, then slowly shook its head. Sometimes you're no fun, Fire Shadow. I would have loved to see the look on some of the elders' faces when I could inform them that their pet mage broke Natsu and Erza free from their one-night sentence. I am not a pet mage. Seagrain grinned, wagging a finger in the air between them. Are you not the one who stated you have never broken any rule or law that the council has set forth? I also know that you've successfully completed every mission we've given you. In fact, you are the only mage who can make both of those claims. You should be proud. Naruto simply stared at the image of Seagrain as it continued to smirk at him, before finally shaking his head and sighing. Was there something you wanted, or are you just trying to pump up my ego so you can ask for something crazy in return? Snorting, Seagrain shook his head. I just enjoy getting a rise out of you, but as it seems I won't be getting a rise out of you this time, I'll take my leave. Naruto said nothing, so Seagrain's image looked over his shoulder towards his aide. Altair. As if snapping from a trance, the woman's eyes immediately focused on her superior. Yes. I'll see you back at headquarters, tomorrow, correct? Altair hesitated for barely a moment, before nodding slowly. I just need to finish setting up the contact with the information you gave me. Assuming there are no delays on their side, I should be able to report in tomorrow evening. Very well. As soon as he finished, the image dissipated, without another glance back in Naruto's direction. He didn't know if he should have felt grateful that Seagrain left so quickly, or insulted that he didn't get any sort of farewell. It barely took a second for him to decide that the former was definitely the better choice. Naruto began to close his eyes and settle back against the wall until Altair's voice interrupted him. So I don't get a hello this time. Turning his head again to look more directly at her this time, he noticed that she was completely focused on him now, unlike before. I didn't think you really needed one. Don't you normally come and go as you please? Altair sniffed, idly brushing a few strands of her long hair back over her shoulder. Yes, but a woman always likes to know that someone recognizes her presence. Especially when we're making our presence obvious. Naruto said nothing, simply watching as Altair returned his stare, then she slowly began to frown. It wasn't until she opened her mouth to say something else that Naruto finally tossed her a real greeting. Hello, Altair. Instead of agitating her, however, she seemed to be pleased with herself for some reason. Not wanting to put much thought into it, Naruto shrugged it off, finally closing his eyes as he leaned back against the wall trying to find a comfortable position. Finally finding one, he let out a contented sigh. Did you want these? Groaning inwardly, Naruto bet to himself that she waited until she knew he was comfortable before talking again. Apparently his attempts at ignoring her were not getting the message across that he did not wish to be disturbed. So instead of opening his eyes and looking, he settled for asking. Want what? There was a small sigh from the woman before she replied. The keys to the jail cell where Natsu Dragonal and your girlfriend, Erza Scarlet, are being held. The blonde's eyebrows rose behind his mask, but his eyes remained closed and he didn't otherwise move. My girlfriend. After a brief moment of silence, you both hide it well, but for someone with my observational skills it's obvious. But the reason for that is likely because I see quite a lot of you, as an official investigator for the council. I'm certain that's only because of with my supposed potential as a wizard saint candidate, of course. Altair chuckled. Partly. You know that I've been assigned to observe and investigate you in your mission since your file was created. That I was chosen was no accident. I'm the best at what I do, and you were and still are a very alluring subject. I may have forced their hands a bit on the matter. Not sure what to say to that, or how he should feel about it. Naruto chose to keep his mouth shut. There was another small huff a moment later, and he heard keys jingle closer to him. Do you want these or not? No thanks. They wouldn't leave the cell even if the door was left wide open. They're going to see this incident through to the end, and I don't blame them. You fairies. You're all a pain to deal with sometimes, I swear. Hearing a sigh, Naruto heard a metallic tinkling noise, followed by a small poof of air. There was another few moments of silence that Naruto was really beginning to enjoy, until Altair spoke up again, this time quieter than before. Will you be comfortable down here? Naruto opened his eyes and looked towards Altair in surprise. She was simply staring at him with no real emotion that he could discern. In his few minor dealings with her he noted that she had always seemed to be a very shrewd individual. Was this perhaps an attempt at her being friendly for once? Perhaps because Seagrain wasn't anywhere remotely nearby. I've slept and rested in worse places than this. It's nothing I can't handle. I've had plenty of experience in operating on very little sleep as well. I see. Altair looked down and tapped at her chin idly for a moment before looking up at his masked face. Well, if you change your mind for whatever reason, I can have one of the administration's bedrooms unlocked for you to use tonight. It's within my power. You don't say. They've never been offered to me before, not that I've ever bothered spending the night here either. Altair smiled in a way that sent a chill down his spine. Technically only council officials are supposed to have access to that wing, so if I give you a room I'll be breaking a rule. You won't tattle on me, will you? No. Good then. There is nothing to worry about. My room is in that same wing, down at the far end, as you approach the research department. Since it's the weekend, almost the entire wing will likely be completely vacant. Should you decide you want a room, you can come find me there. Giving her a brief nod, Naruto started to close his eyes again, but she spoke up once more. Or if you get bored, you could stop by for some fun, regardless. Naruto almost tripped over his own feet as he quickly moved away from the wall, looking at the woman in shock. Even if the sound was soft, he could hear giggling from behind her hand that was covering her mouth as she watched his reaction. So the great fire shadow can be flustered after all. I kind of wish that I could glance at the face behind the mask to see if you're blushing. Upon getting that reaction, though, I bet you are. What are you talking about, Altair? You can't be serious. We barely know each other. Not only that, you just claimed I had a girlfriend, and now you're. I'm what? Fire Shadow. Propositioning you. Someone as powerful as you, I can't believe no one has before now. Though I'm sure that's because Titania has been beating them away with a stick when you aren't looking. Naruto could do nothing but continue to gape at her from behind his mask. Sure, he had been teased and offered good times from random women he'd met, and even been teased a few times within the guild. But Altair was someone who was observing him because it was her job, and she was an indirect member of the Mage Council as a result. It made him uncomfortable that she likely knew a ton more information about him compared to what little he knew about her. When Naruto didn't reply to what she said, Altair simply shrugged and continued talking. As for my offer, it stands, though from what I know of you, I doubt you'd ever seriously consider accepting it. It's a shame, I think, though at the same time it makes you all the more worthy and desirable. Altair turned away and proceeded to walk away from him down the hall, without another word or look back. The expression on her face as she finished talking spoke volumes in itself. He'd seen it from Erza several times before as well, usually after he had finished teasing her in private. Desire. It wasn't obvious, but the small grin and half-lidded eyes were enough of a hint. Shuddering as he thought about it more, he purposefully tried to shut out thoughts of Altair and even considered going back to the jail cell to talk to Erza some more, simply to erase the raven-haired woman from his mind. But they wouldn't be able to talk about too much because Natsu was right there. Not that he didn't trust Natsu. He did, but the Dragon Slayer was notorious for having a big mouth. Sighing, Naruto shook his head and tried to get in a comfortable position yet again. He and Altair had barely talked to each other before, and she suddenly decided to drop this on him. No matter how many times he unwillingly turned their conversation over in his head, it made no sense. Sure it does. Huh, do I really even want to know? Brat, I know her type. While she is obviously human, she is acting like a demon would. She's going after the most powerful alpha she can find. Most power. What does that have to do with anything? Power is everything. Didn't you just hear what I said? She's going after you because in her mind, she's given you alpha status. You totally overpower any enemy you come across, which has garnered her attention. Apparently you act in the way she finds ideal for a mate, therefore. Mate. No way. I have Erza. Yeah, so, what's one more? What? I can't do that. It's just not right. TCH. Humans and your stupid moral complications. I know multiple partnerships happen in your dimension among noble houses, so don't act like it's something completely unheard of either. A harem is both the best way to get the most satisfaction and the longest lasting dynasty. You humans like those things, right? Some do. I'm not one of them. I'm happy with Erza. You say that now. What's that supposed to mean? Never mind, it's not worth it. Just don't come crying to me when it's time that you need to safely use one of those reinforcement seals we talked about. Never going to happen. Sure, brat, whatever you say. Just remember, never is a long time. Fairy Tail Guild Card. Naruto. Fire Shadow, Uzumaki. Mage Council Classification. S rank, registered. Notes. Classified Class 2, see Archives Management with inquiries. Stage 0. Only utilizes martial combat skills, fists, feet, kunai knives, shuriken, and short sword. Stage 1. Magical powers, most are nature-oriented, often supplemented by heavy solid clone usage. See Era Council Archives, Section V, Row 2, Shadow Clones, for more information. Stage 2. Demonic energy cloak covers his body, control given to Kyuubi no Yuko. Stage 3. Version 1. Scarlet Demon Cloak. Version 2. Scarlet Demon Redux, Bones. Version 3. Scarlet Demon 3rd, Full Body. See Era Council Archives, Section 27, Row I, Fire Shadow, Naruto Uzumaki, for updates. Stage 4. Power level unknown, assumed greater than Stage 3. Vague comments about being a sage. Multiple sources confirm. Member since October 21, 782, 3 years, 8 months. Age 20. Solo missions 766. Team missions 334. S-rank missions 41. SS rank missions 4. Reward to date 3,348,257,114 joules. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, as well as checking out the author on fanfiction.net.